here to talk today about CV writing and interview tips. So we've got some basic points, some slightly more advanced, but as Paul just said, happy to answer any questions at the end. Who am I? So I first started my career, well I say my career, when I was 12 years old I worked on an ice cream bike along the seafront, selling ice creams. Then I had jobs throughout education. I left college and went to work at a call centre for a short while. Then I worked for a training provider offering apprenticeships to young people, and I was telling Laura that we actually did some stuff on the apprenticeship bus a fair few years back, did some CV writing skills and workshops with people then as well. Then I worked for a healthcare agency, and then I've recently set up the business with my wife, which is Lighthouse Personnel, and we're just coming to the end of our first year. So just to give you a bit of a background from me and why I'm here to talk to you about the subject that I know a lot about. So what we'll talk about, breaking it down into subjects. So we've got 3 things to help you with your career journey. The first subject or topic is going to be CV writing. We've broken that down into 3 subtitles: the layout of a CV, the design of a CV, and the actual content itself. Then interview tips, so preparing for an interview, the interview itself, and questions to ask an employer at the end, which is something very important to do at the end of an interview. And then also we're going to cover a little bit about LinkedIn, which for beauty students, for any student looking for any kind of career, LinkedIn is a really good platform to get into some good habits to using to help you throughout your career to get the right opportunity for you. So just like a little raise of hands first, who's actually got a CV or got a written CV? If you could raise hands. So about 60–70%, something like that. Which is not a surprise, you know, not everyone has a CV. Who completely wrote it on their own completely? So we're now talking more like 10–20% of people possibly, and then obviously who had help writing their CV. Okay, none of those are the right or wrong answer. In fact, I think my first CV, and even the one that I use at the moment or have used recently, I've probably had help writing it, whether it be a friend or a family member. Whoever does write your CV, it is really important to know it inside out. Because if you go for an interviewer might sit with your CV in front of them like this, and they might ask you questions about it. It's a good talking point. So when you have your CV finished, make sure that you know it inside out, you've read it, so that if they're going to ask you questions, you know exactly the answer to that question they're going to ask you on your CV. So the layout. We recommend keeping your CV to 1 or 2 pages. Now you could have 1 job, you could have 10 jobs. As I said, I was selling ice cream bikes since I was 12 years old. I don't have that on my CV. But keeping it to 1 or 2 pages, so it's nice and clear and concise. It's not about bunching it up, but keeping it to 1 or 2 pages so that when a hiring manager is looking at your CV, it's nice and clear for them. They haven't got to seek through all those pages to get the right information they want. Split it into sections. So the ones we recommend, there's obviously lots of different sections you could have on your CV. Personal profile, education, work history, achievements, hobbies and references. With the personal profile, that's kind of a key part. It's a small paragraph you'll put at the top of your CV, which will have on it a little bit of information about you, what makes you different. So it could be about your personality or experiences that are unique to you. But also in your personal profile, you should put why you're looking for a job. So it could be that you've just finished your college course, it could be that you've just left another opportunity, and also what you're looking for, so that when an employer is looking, it's direct, and that can be tailored to each job opportunity that you look for. A CV should be different for every job you go for. You should have a base template of a CV that you've written, and then for each individual job you go for, you should tailor it slightly to the job that you're going for, so that when the hiring manager is looking at it, they know exactly what you're looking for and why you're looking. Laura, just want to give out those handouts as well, just thinking about it. Just if you want to make any notes, we've just done some little handouts for you just on the topics that we're talking about, so we'll just come around with those. A good layout as well ensures good readability. So when I say about the 1 or 2 pages, it doesn't have to just flow down. You can have columns on the page, which I'm going to show you some examples of in a moment, or it can have split into sections, as we mentioned. But readability, if it looks jumbled, if it looks cluttered, it can put people off before they've even looked at it. So it's really important to make sure it looks nice and clean, looks nice and professional. So some examples of the designs. 3 basic templates of Microsoft Word here. I haven't created these myself. You can literally go on Microsoft Word and you can search for CV templates. And these are just 3 of the first ones that will come up. Now, this kind of layout should depict a bit about your personality. This layout shows someone probably quite creative, quite techie. There's some little icons in there. This profile, again, you know, with a picture on it, up to you whether you do that. Personally, I prefer without one, but it could be for someone as yourselves looking for a beauty career. And this one is perhaps more of a professional-looking CV that's split into sections, perhaps for someone going into some form of business, accounting. It really does depict what you're going for simply on the template, because this is the first thing they're going to see. Is how it looks, how it's structured. So choose a good template when you're looking on Microsoft Word, and there's loads on it. And you can always ask, again, friends, family members for their opinion on how it basically looks. So the content of the CV, so the actual words that you're using when you're writing it, first of all we say keep it clear and concise. So it's not about writing every single thing you've done in your job, but making it clear and concise. So for example, with an administration job, you could have done filing, photocopying, scanning. If you have a full paragraph on that thing, it takes up valuable space where you can put other things on that are going to make you stand out. Use particular keywords. So this is one thing that people tend to miss. And I had a friend recently looking for a job in marketing, and they had a really nice CV, looked really good, but the word marketing wasn't on their CV anywhere. So if someone's going on Google or looking at CVs, the first thing they're going to look for is the word marketing. So recruiters like me, hiring managers in large organisations will use things like Reed or Indeed, and they will search through CVs that have gone on that website recently. Keywords are really crucial, because that's going to be the first thing they're going to be searching for. If it's marketing, you'd want marketing, digital, you'd probably want content in there. And without those keywords, they might never find you. And you could be the right person for that role 100%, but because you haven't put the right keywords in, so for beauty or nail technician, I don't know, for example, but having those words somewhere in, even if it is reporting to that person or looking for a job as it will really help when people are actually looking for you. And again, on your LinkedIn profile, that's going to be something that we'll talk about at the end. And first impressions are everything, so do make it personal to you. And that's when we talk about people helping you with your CV. Make sure it sounds like you. Make sure it has a feel of you. Because if it sounds like someone else, then when that person's interviewing you, there's going to be a conflict there. So you want to be prepared that your CV really sounds like you writing it, if you see what I'm saying. So moving on to interview tips. Who here has had a job interview before? Raise your hands. Okay. And who's been offered a job? Follow it. Great, most of you, that's great. So you've all gone in, you've had that first exposure. I'm sure that's a variety of jobs as well. One thing I would always say, whether you're successful or not, is to always ask for interview feedback from any employer or hiring manager that you meet, is to ask for feedback, because without that, you can't make improvements for next time. And a hiring manager should always offer it to you. They might say you did really well, but there was just someone that slightly picked you, but they might have something crucial that can really help you moving forward onto your next interview. So preparation. You've got an interview, and you might have had one before, like some of you have, so you sort of know what to expect. You might have never been for an interview before. So you're going to be going through this stage of preparing for an interview, and there's some key points that you should be looking for when you're preparing. So the first one would be to research the company. So if you go on their website, usually your company will have a history page or an about us page, or they'll tell you a bit more about what sector they're in. So if it was accounting, they might specialise in offering accounting services to IT companies. And there'll be some USPs, which stands for unique selling points. So what makes that company different to all the other companies out there that do the same thing? So what you need to be looking for when you're researching is to get a real feel for what this company are trying to do and how they're different. And write down some really important parts that make them different to the other companies in the same sector. Because when you're at the interview, to show how interested you are, you can talk about these things that someone else might not have picked up on. So their unique selling points might be they're the cheapest. It might be that they're really passionate about helping people. And if you then come across with that same passion, because you are passionate about helping people, they're going to think you're like-minded to exactly what they're looking for. So really try and understand their unique selling points, what makes them different to other companies, what makes them stand out. The history part as well, you can then understand the journey that they've been on to get to where they are, and you can appreciate that. And again, it's quite flattering as a hiring manager if you really understand the history of the business and how they got there today. Research the interviewer. So not many people do this. Not many senior members of staff who have had 20 years experience actually research the interviewer. You can look at that via the About Us page on the website. There might be a picture of them, a little bit of information, or you can look on LinkedIn and you can actually find the interviewer. Now, if you find the interviewer, they might say that 10 years ago they went to Stoke High School, and that's where you went. And then you've got something in common with the interview that you can actually talk about at the interview, and it will just make it a lot easier for you. It also makes you feel more comfortable when you arrive, because you know who to expect, who's going to come and meet with you, and it just makes you feel a little bit more at ease and takes that pressure off a little bit. Plus, if you do it on LinkedIn, and you've got a LinkedIn profile, they will see that you've looked at their profile. They will see that you've gone and done your homework. So for them, that's quite flattering, and that shows that you're taking this seriously. You're not just going because you just want a job at the moment. You're going because you're actually interested in this specific position. Obviously, it will help you prepare some questions as well, because you can ask them about what they've done before. So, you used to work for Sky. Brilliant. What was that like? Sky's a massive brand. You tell me more about that. And that, again, when you're at the end of the interview asking questions, from researching the interviewer properly, you should have some really nice questions to ask them. Understand the job role and person spec. So here, when you've got a job description, an interviewer may sit with it in front of them and actually ask you specifically where you've done things that you're going to be doing before. Now, it might say to you, build relationships or with customers. So, if you're working in a hair salon or if you're working in an office, you've got to be able to build relationships. Now, if you've never had a job before, how can you prove that? Well, you could say, well, at school or college, I was this, that. I worked in the football team, or I was captain of this, or I did this extracurricular activity. And you need to think of examples for each of those points on the job description and person spec. Even if they're not in a working environment, if they're just something that you've done at home, or something that you do in your spare time, or something that you've done at school or college, then that's just as useful to an employer as someone who's done it for 10 years, as I say, in an office, for example.